get up and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business. And I have chosen you to preach this evangel.
For all my free market healthcare robbing, stock stealing, retirement fund fucking with niggas. Fuck you little credit card scamming, jewelry stealing, crack selling, liquor store robbing motherfuckers. Shout to the homies, Carnegie, OG, Willie Randolph Hearst, Baruch, Rockefeller, the real Rockefeller, my main bitch Leona, pour out a little Louis XIII, Scott Rothstein, Jack Abramoff, hold your head, my roll top niggas, let's get this money. I spend my day prepping America overseas, pension for the workers, nigga please, embezzlement, etiquette, private settlement, I'm better with Confederate rhetoric from my mansion in Connecticut, foreclose a big holes at the tenement, I twist words like a speech impediment, I hope you got good credit bitch, if not better get a new job with benefits, while I play golf with niggas to get cheddar with, new money buys brand new carrots, my old money bunch of great grandparents, you got grills in your mouth, I ain't mad at ya, I own every gold mine in South Africa. Thanks, baby, you made me $1 billion. Plus, I own a building for each one of my children's children.
And we are live. Welcome to UCY TV, Voice of Rebellion with Chris Jackson Rojas. And yeah, here we go.
Hey, everybody. We are live. Welcome to Voice of Rebellion Radio. It is the final day of January, and we are live. 6 o'clock over there on the West Coast, Pacific. For everybody that's for everybody that's seen what's happened this week, I'm going to talk about the top of the show because I have a pretty important thing to talk about. This show is kind of just a beginner's, I guess, guide to the alternative media and sifting through the disinfo and the propaganda and just the people trying to sell stuff in the alternative media between the truth, the people actually trying to inform the people that are actually passionate about one day possibly bringing a great change, a revolution to the United States. And to those people that I think this show is going to be a little bit more general. I'm just going to be talking about all the different sites on the alternative media, just the stuff I've encountered even. Talk about to the people that are brand new to the truth movement, which are may on UCY, or might, I don't know, it seems like this is actually one where it's like talking to people building upon their foundation, not exactly waiting for people, but a lot of times it's building on the foundation of people that have already been awoken and trying to inform them further, or people just trying to hear more opinions from different sides might be listening to Voice of Rebellion. The show, same with 2 hours, go out there in the Pacific. You'll be out in time for later this evening. Anyways, next week's the big week. While we're talking, we're going to really be competing with something for people to listen. But I wanted to talk about tonight's show. It's been a tragic week for the people who were closely following what was going on out there in Oregon. The Oregon militia that occupied the Bureau of Land Management building outside of Burns, Oregon, protesting the corrupt government, of course, and the attack on rural America that's happening more specifically by BLM and other three-letter agencies, the EPA, these agencies, they talk about how people will be starting wildfires or polluting when they do horrible acts of pollution, as we saw out there in Colorado, where they polluted an entire river terribly at the direct fault of the EPA or the Bureau of Land Management, which they have done many times on fires like the Hammonds did, who were arrested, and it was a controlled fire, and then they actually wasn't a controlled fire, it was an accidental fire on their own land, but then the federal government disputed it, saying it was the federal government's land, So that Hammond were put in jail. Now they were transferred, I think, to another prison, if I was not mistaken. And now they're about they're more than 5 years into their sentence. They're well into their sentence, I think. And they were sentenced to, I think it was in 2011, they were sentenced to prison. That's when they were, that's for something that happened in 2011, why they're in prison. And the Bundy militia, which, yes, they're connected to the same Bundys that were back in 2014 that stood up to the federal land grab over there in Nevada at the Bundy Ranch, Clive Bundy. These are a couple of sons were there. And also 150 men at one point were all at the refuge. However, if you were looking at the mainstream media for clues of what was going on, it seemed like it was almost blacked out, ignored. Pretend it didn't happen until they actually had to cover up what happened. I believe it was Monday night. So that Monday or Tuesday night when the feds raided pretty much the refuge.
You put me on the spot. Man, all these days have run together. I've been spending a lot of late nights keeping up with this, reviewing information. It was, I'd have to go back and look.
It's like on Monday night. I missed, I didn't catch it hours after it had happened. It wasn't like I was on I was at work. I remember the exact moment I pulled up my phone, and then I was scrolling through the news right after showing up in the break room a little bit after work, and then I saw that the raid had happened, and I thought at first that I saw that there had been shots fired, and then I was pretty shocked to see what I was going to see next. What had happened was that the federal government had killed Lavoy Finicum in cold blood. An unfortunate incident, and Lavoy Finicum, from all the thing is, the federal government practically bragged about it a couple of days later by releasing the footage, showing that it looks very clear that the federal government killed him in cold blood. It didn't differ much from the original witnesses' accounts. But Finicum, for one thing, there's this people are saying, oh, look, he grabbed for his left coat pocket. However, Finicum was right-handed and was clearly always had his gun on his right holster, never in his coat and never on his left side of his coat because it was not even on his dominant hand. So, and it probably was... and the thing was that at that point, Finicum appeared to have already been shot, and that what he was grounded for was a bullet wound where he had been shot, and then they continued to shoot him afterwards, dealing the multiple gunshot wounds. And then the worst thing maybe of it all is leaving him to lie there while, he could have lived if he had been attended to by the EMTs immediately. However, they left him there for 10 minutes, and EMTs couldn't work on him, and he pretty much bled out right there. I can imagine that's must have what happened, because he was taken away. It looked like he already dead. They didn't rush him to the hospital or anything. They didn't even attend to him there. So they committed murder on so many levels to Finicum. And Finicum was also, he was trying to protect his buddies that were in the car when the federal ambush happened. It was not a traffic stop. As you can see, there were multiple federal cars coming in from one side of the road, coming in near the traffic stop, in quotations, happening. And you see also there's the federal footage, which they're getting from some aircraft. There must have been a helicopter from above, so I guess they're filming. And they have the footage. It's pretty clear what happened. Finicum was murdered, and also one other injury did occur. Ryan Bundy was shot in the arm, but I believe it was a very minor injury. Besides that, there was 8 arrests were made that night, including the leader, Almond Bundy, who has now been denied bail. I think all these Oregon, at least a few of them were denied bail, which is definitely a harsh punishment. That means they'll have to sit in jail until the court date happens, which could be in the next whole way for another 6 months. And I can just imagine what they're going to try to do to slam them. Possibly a charge of domestic terror. They'll try to say terrorism, or they'll try to say, yeah, I don't know. There's quite a few I could think of. There's a very minimum. I mean, they could even slap on some simple as a burglary charge, and or something like that for entering the building, and say that they were using the government's resources in the building, and then they could stretch it to that, and then still, either way, I can just imagine they're going to try to put them away for years. It was these patriots standing up for the rights. Finally, somebody does something to actually put some fear in the government and some fear into the government's worshipers, the people that are just so subservient and think that the government, that the Obama administration or the government, both either side can't do anything wrong. But it definitely puts some fear into the government, I would think, and that's why they. I think that's probably the reason why they murdered Finicum was to try to scare us. However, I think this could inspire more militia movements into the future. In fact, right now, at the same time, there's what's going on up there in Flint, Michigan, where militia, there's the whole Flint, Michigan water poisoning that's happened recently, where the people are being killed by their own city's water because the city is too cheap to get it from and it's not the city's money. They are misusing the taxpayers' money. Their own money is being used to poison them because they can't. The city decided they didn't want to spend that extra money on getting the water from cleaner source, but they went to a super cheap source filled with lead and all kinds of other contaminants in lead, and it gave people lead poisoning. At least 10 people were killed by Flint's water. But up there, the militia has actually been an unlikely alliance has happened, and I think it's a start of a good thing. And this Bundy thing, I think, has actually awoken a little bit of awakening in some people that instead of the movements between left and right or whatever, what we consider left and right, how about we unify as one movement against the government at this point? And what I mean by that is that same people that saw Eric Gardner as being as killed by the police see Lavoy Finicum's murder totally justifiable. And the same people that saw Eric Gardner, they thought that he might have deserved it, or they thought Michael Brown deserved it or whatever, seemed to think that Lavoy Finicum didn't deserve it. And then there's a few that are actually awakened enough to realize that neither of them deserved it, and this was a state, both our state versus the people issue, not race, not this division. I don't even think it's really necessarily left versus right thing, because there's quite a few people on the left that supported the Bundys. Definitely the first time. Second time they were a little bit more shy to show up. I think the second time there's still some. And then the Eric Gardner thing, there was quite a few, I think, more right-wing people in Black Lives Matter. But I think also ultimately there's this weird racial divide that exists between the two movements, and people think that, well, if you support Black Lives Matter, you can't support the Bundy. It also makes something clear is I don't really support Black Lives Matter, some sects of it, because just like I would support some of the people in the militia movement for the same reasons, that yes, there are some racists in the Black Lives Matter movement that don't like white people and believe that it's all white people's fault for the oppression towards blacks throughout American history or in recent history, not the government, not the elite establishment. And then there's some people in the militia movement that are racist as well, and often that see that as blacks as being a problem, and believe that blacks are being treated too well under the Obama administration or whatever, But the Bundy militia weren't one of these people. The Bundy militia were accused of being racist by the media, of course. Was a very taken out of context video. Which, yes, the wording that Cliven Bundy used, and this is not the same Bundys that were even at the Oregon militia. That was their father, but still, who was at the other standoff with the federal government. However, Cliven Bundy said that we are all N-words now. So, I believe that's what he said. And what he meant by that was that we are all out there on the field now. We are working for the super rich while we are just slaves to them as pawns. That's how they see us at this point, is how plantation owners see slaves back on the slavery days, is what I took from it. Because I can tell you the way that, and also the way he talked about how he employed Mexican workers in the past, and he didn't speak about them in any form of a racist fashion. I believe that he talked about how they were hardworking, and I believe he talked about how they were very friendly or whatever. I think that what he said about was a wrong statement, because he shouldn't use that wording. However, it wasn't what the media claimed he had said. So I think that Bundy. I think that Bundy. There were some problems also with the supporters. I have to admit that as well. The supporters from the Oregon militia. I saw the rhetoric, and I saw that there was a lot of divisive rhetoric trying to alienate a lot of activists. I saw the same people. I mean, literally the memes right there saying like, saying that the FBI killed no one at Ferguson. Why did they kill somebody here at the Bundy standoff? Well, that's actually not true. That's not even factual. I think a few people were killed by the police during the Ferguson riots. And in fact, there was one that was executed in a very similar fashion, a parking lot. Like what happened to Lavoie Freedom. It's all one struggle. I think that we need to realize that, and I think that medias that make that clear that there is no division between the movements are the ones you should be looking at. I mean, I can already tell you right now, there's two that are considered the alternative media, and they're some of the most divisive alternative media sites. They're only on Facebook, and they're just oxymorons. But I just want to put out there that people are sharing shit off of that so much on Facebook, even activists. They just need to stop, because they're just tools of the two different parties in America, actually. One's literally called Occupy Democrats, and it's literally a page of of idiots, thinking that the next Democratic president is going to cause a revolution and it's going to change the United States and going to stand up to Wall Street and kick out the bankers or whatever. But they don't have this half knowledge about what even are what is Wall Street and what are the bankers. They don't know who the hell the fucking Rothschilds are, these people in there. And these are the same people. It's disgusting, the rhetoric that was used against the Bundy militia during this whole standoff. Saying, oh yeah, they should call in the drones, they should call in the tanks. Who the fuck do you think you are? Or what kind of country do you want to live in? Do you want to embrace a full Tiananmen Square China type thing at this point? Where, I don't think I don't know. Was that a thing that was going on where was that one guy that was standing there while the Tiananmen Square tanks came in? Was there a bunch of people on the side cheering on the tanks? Because that's what it seems like Occupy Democrats, the people that comment on there, are like. And now the standoff hasn't even ended. I'll say that is that it's actually still, I think 4 people are still in the building, but it's ended, but it's not ended. As in, it's still, there's probably nothing that can be accomplished at this point, and those 4 probably should try to find a way out, I believe, before they get taken to jail or killed. Could very likely happen. And I think that at this point, 146 are gone, and there's only 4 left. They made our message. That's what this Bundy militia thing was about. Is that the message has been put that there are some people still left in this country that are not afraid to use the Second Amendment rights to their fullest extent. Rise up in a militia and stand up to a tyrannical government when the tyrannical government arrives, which has already arrived. And I think that the federal government knows that there'll be more of these militias in the future, and it won't be like the 90s again, and it won't be, part of the reason why the 90s, when the 90s militias went so bad is that people saw them, because a lot of them were far-right extremists, and ultimately that Timothy McVeigh guy ruined the reputation forever. However, Timothy McVeigh was connected to the CIA. He was Gulf. He was pretty much like, went from like Gulf War vet, and then in between that time he was working with the CIA, and then it looks like it was a CIA operation to dismantle a lot of resistance inside the country, and it did scare a lot of people when it happened, and it killed 160 people. And that's the thing. That's the sad thing about false flags. Is that, people think when false flags happen that people don't die or whatever, that's all filmed and just actors and stuff like that. Well, a lot of times the government does kill real people, and the casualties and fatalities are real. It's just that who done it is not true compared to what they were saying. Another page on Facebook really just irked me. Fucking right-wing news is the name of the page, and you can see it's right there in the name, right-wing news. It's literally a Republican mouthpiece with a bunch of people trying to say that when the next Republican president, everything's going to change. When Obama gets out, all the corruption's going to end and all the fascism's going to end, but they don't say fascism because that implies that corporations are working with the government, which they love corporations. They love McDonald's making billions of dollars off of people, also paying their employees shit, and the people having heart attacks off their food. Oh, they love Walmart. People going in and paying their employees so low that us, the fucking taxpayers, have to pay for their food stamps. And they love people going in there and buying their cheap Chinese goods that are made in a sweatshop over across the Pacific Ocean. People over there, they have to, in factories there in China are so terrible. The iPod factory, where they literally big nets around the building, and people jump out of them at time out of these buildings. They had these nets, so when people jump out, because it happens so common, well, they don't die. Steve Jobs, everybody seemed to love him. Oh yeah, he was not as bad as all these other CEOs. I saw him on TV defending how the whole Apple factory was set up over there in China, and he's just as despicable as Bill Gates is. And while Bill Gates, I don't know if anybody can really dispute his despicability, but these right-wing news, they won't talk about the super rich or the billionaire elite. Of course, not the Rothschilds. But a lot of people from the activist community share the pages, share their little pictures of, oh, look, here comes the Obamacare sign up, and a bunch of Mexicans jump over the fence is what they're trying to show. They're trying to talking just a bunch of smack about legal immigrants, and then warming up to Trump and saying, oh, yeah, it's like all these other countries have it where it's so hard to cross the border. Why can't we? And support Donald Trump 2016. And people are going to make this. People probably will still keep on sharing the stuff from the phony alternative media. This is just the surface. This is some of the most horrible examples, but there's still so many more sites to talk about. I mean, let's go right now to the big two right here. These are the ones that really create the main division in the alternative media. Let's start first off with Alex Jones, who he's a right-wing nut job, for one thing, that he screams on camera, even spit at the camera. It's not only that, he's not a nut job, because he's actually a genius. And he's actually perfectly crafted how to. He talks a few smart things about 9/11, talked about the OKC bombing way back in 95. He might have been actually legit when he first started in the 90s. But I believe it was bought off very early. Then they'll talk all this stuff. Defeat the corporate masters. First, buy my water filters, and he just sells so much stuff during the show. Man, the guy is a multi-millionaire. He's been invited on the mainstream media a lot, telling you that I don't know if you were really that legit, but they allow you on the mainstream media as much as they allow him on the past. They let him go on Piers Morgan before and just make all gun owners look like nut jobs because he's on there streaming about stuff that not even factual. Talk about how Castro and Hugo Chavez took away guns. Not that Castro's gun was bad, but it was very short and it was a temporary thing. And Hugo Chavez, that was completely unfactual. There was no facts to it, and he never took away the guns. In fact, they have armed militias in Venezuela. But Alex Jones, I mean, there's so many other examples. In the same case, what does he talk about Israel? What does he talk about the Zionists? We have the biggest lobby telling our politicians what to do when it comes to the Middle East, when it comes to pushing the United States towards war. Talk about Israel, a country that human rights violations are really unparalleled by nobody. They have everybody in Palestine walled in by a wall that's bigger than the Berlin Wall was and ever was. I mean, this thing's just a sign of oppression. And then in there, they can't get water, they can't really get food, they don't have basic medical care, and then they put them on these little population centers like they do in Gaza City, and then they bomb it. And then when it happens, there's kids, women, pregnant women, they're killed. These Israeli, they'll wear shirts, they'll show sniper hairs over a pregnant woman. And it says 2 shots, 1 kill. Or no, 1 shot, 2 kills. I mean, they're just proud of being genocidal assholes. And then they'll have the nerve to say Israel is the victim after 80% civilian casualties on Palestine's end. Thousands die, 2,000 dies. While on Israel's end, 95% of the people that are killed are Israeli soldiers. And it's only like 4 people. Actually, it'd be 80%. And then there'd be 1 civilian that was just unlucky, got hit by the little bottle rocket that Hamas sent back to Tel Aviv or whatever. It's not even comparable. And for years this has went on, just war after war. And it's not a war because they don't have a standing army in Palestine. They just come in with jets and they bomb it, and there's nothing they can do about it. They can send back little bottle rockets. That's all that Hamas has, and it's questionable where Hamas's loyalty goes. Because Hamas seems to be against every government. I know they're definitely against the Syrian government, one of the biggest enemies that's truly against Zionist Israel. And Hamas appears to be, what a lot of people say, they might even be controlling the position. So Palestine really has no defense to the Israeli strikes. And even if Hamas was real, they literally pose no threat to Israel. And then they come in, they're just horrifying images. They bomb schools, they bomb hospitals. They'll have, and also just bulldozing their houses left and right so people from Europe can come move in just because they're Jewish. Another thing is that they do give the Palestinians a warning, 10 minutes or something like that. Not even. It's like they give them a little text message. You miss that text message, you're dead. I mean, they literally tell you that they're about to bomb your apartment complex or whatever. Get out. You're about to lose your house, and if you don't listen to us in time, you're going to lose your life. And they don't. I bet they don't do that for every attack. Most of the time, it's probably by surprise. And the attack, what they warn, there is no warrant to it. They always will say, we saw that there was a rocket coming from there or whatever. Or sometimes when it's actually there's no evidence of anything, they'll just say,
We miscalculated. It was an apartment over we were trying to bomb. They'll just say the human error. They're allowed to get off every time on the human error excuse. It's ridiculous. And you don't see Alex Jones talk about it one time. You don't see Alex Jones. You see it every now and then. He'll say that these government's corrupt or whatever. But you'll talk more back about Venezuela. The Venezuelan government, who kicked out the Rothschilds, that he says, I don't hear him mention that name that much, but he claims to be against the Rothschilds. They got the gold back. They used their oil to actually provide basic services for the people. They can move out of the fucking slums that they were living in the 90s under the U.S. Supported dictatorship, and they can move into nice oil-built apartment buildings that they built in Caracas and into the rural areas. I mean, their standard of living has went way up. But literally, if you compare the amount of times that Alex Jones has mentioned Venezuela compared to Israel, literally the source of most of the troubles in the Middle East right now, Israel, the source of a lot of the world's suffering at this point when it comes to who controls Israel, who's very close to Israel, actually, is what has caused almost all of the world's suffering at this point, and they're trying to make the New World Order. And Israel has become practically headquarters. It's the Rothschilds' baby is what Israel is. Yes, it is the Rothschilds' baby. I mean, look at it. There was the Balfour Declaration literally addressed to the Rothschilds. Where is the Israeli Supreme Court? It's on Rothschild Boulevard. But where does Alex Jones talk about any of this? Does he even mention any of these facts? But no, you can look at that. He's probably mentioned it 4 times in the last 4 years. He's probably mentioned Venezuela 8 times. He talks about stuff that's literally coming right from Fox News, and he takes it and tries to make it seem like he's giving you something that's not bullshit. And he brought all his listeners, he brought them all down into the loony train, into the right wing. Now he's interviewing Trump and talking about how nice of a Trump is, how good Trump is of a person. He supported Trump. Literally the indictment of everything that's wrong with the system. That's what he was there to do. He got people when they were vulnerable, when he acted like he was. I feel really bad for the people that have been on the train the whole time. They were on the bandwagon when he might have been still legit back in the early 90s. It was actually like mid-90s. 96 or so was when he really started. And then he slowly, the 2000s, he was still pretty legit. You wouldn't dare talk. He wouldn't dare talk about the Republican establishment in a bit of good way. Any of them in the early 2000s, and started in 2010. He started to slip up. You could see it happening, but he was still not too bad. And then 2013 just went off the fucking rails, and now he's taking everybody down to. He's supported Rand Paul, a Zionist, a person that would support more wars in the Middle East. He's not his father. Just because he has a Paul name does not make him like his father. He supported Donald Trump, which is just an oxymoron in itself right there, because those two claim to be against each other. He supports Ted Cruz, which he talks about, he was onto that birth or citizenship stuff. Ted Cruz was born in Canada, lived in Canada for 4 years until he came to the United States in the mid-'70s with his mother, who was the only one that was American. And his father, where was his father from? Cuba. He was born in Cuba. But I don't give a shit where people are born, and that's why I don't talk about the birther thing with Obama. That was all the other horrible shit that he's done. The birther thing is just it's so minor. In fact, I don't care if somebody was acting like how JFK was president or how Putin is for president of Russia right now. Somebody acted as a strong leader and kicked up the Rothschilds and kicked up the New World Order out of the country and made the country sovereign again. I don't care where they were from. They could be from fucking Islamabad, Pakistan, and they could be of the Sikh faith. I don't give a shit about nationality or religion or any of that stuff. Or that Obama's Muslim. Anyways, was the religion. He grew under the CIA, and I can tell you once, people in the CIA don't have a religion. The only religion they have is whatever is best for the situation. That's how the agents work. And Obama, I could tell you, was definitely groomed under the CIA. He has all the characteristics. But, okay, Alex Jones has embraced Palin recently. Called Palin the real deal, and he was pretty much, I don't know if that was taken out of context, but what I saw, pretty much Alex Jones described, you can laugh at this, Vince, Alex Jones described that he was having a wet dream about Palin. So, when literally 5 years ago, we talked about how Palin was a slut, a whore, or whatever, which it was just, what he pretty much called her was a slut used by the Republican establishment to draw stupid people. And 5 years later, he's calling Palin this sexy lady that he's having a wet dream over, and you'd be glad to see as the vice president. That's what he said, pretty much, just a few months ago. Alex Jones is a complete false. I mean, he's been. Luckily, I think that at this point, he's no longer the king of the conspiracy realist movement. He can be in his own category with the conspiracy theorists, the people that just make up theories and are just in it really for the shits and giggles about it. But people that are really about a revolution, about to get out this corrupt government, I think that Alex Jones is no longer the king of those people. Nobody, real truthers don't support Alex Jones like they used to. Alex Jones is really falling apart. I think that his career is on the way downwards. And let's talk about on the other side of this bird of the phony alternative media, Sek Bugar. Oh, where can I start talking about Sek Bugar? Is that he used to work for MSNBC. I mean, that just says a lot right there. He worked. It wasn't like he worked for MSNBC back in the early 2000s when they had. I mean, it was different back then. Lawrence O'Donnell, or not Lawrence O'Donnell. That guy still works there. That's a guy that kind of pretends like he's different. No, Bill Radigan. He called for revolution on live air, and he was fired like right afterwards. There was Radigan. There was Jesse Ventura was on there. He was for a short time. They had a decent lineup, and then they got rid of. They just purged it all. There was Ventura was on there, and then, but no, Cinco Gore came during this current MSNBC, which is like the TV version of Tumblr. It's a fucking joke. I mean, you just all it is pretty much talking about who's winning the oppressed Olympics and why Obama is the greatest president we've ever had or whatever, and why you should totally vote for Hillary Clinton, despite the fact that she and call her a candidate for peace, even though that she supported every war going back to 2001 and before, and the fact that Hillary Clinton would support complete all of our rights being taken away, all the people in the 2016 race would. But coming from MSNBC, he was part of that shit. He was at the start of when that started happening. I mean, now it's just complete garbage that's on there. I mean, 3 o'clock. Remember, there's that shit with Spin Cycle. That's literally what they're doing. They're spinning the truth in favor of the government. And then they distract you with all these stupid, pretty much what they call social justice warriors or whatever. But they're not supporting any real social justice or whatever. They just take very arbitrary issues or whatever, and then they just keep and they talk about it, and then not focus on the real issues, like it's like when on the other side, like when everybody talks about the Hillary Clinton email saying, what about the fact that Hillary Clinton helped supported Al Qaeda, helped support Al Qaeda to kill Gaddafi and take out Gaddafi, probably a leader that could have saved Africa if he had stayed in power. But now, thanks to Hillary Clinton and the United States government at that time, he's dead, and Africa the future is looking a lot different now. But Senko Gore now has a show called The Young Turks or whatever, and that's because of his Turkish heritage, which probably would explain why from what I saw, I don't think he's very favorable of Putin, and he can support all he wants, that Islamo-fascist regime in Turkey. He can support all he wants, the United States side of things over there. And Cenk pretends to be a little bit more radical than MSNBC or whatever by saying, "Oh, we're covered." It's awesome that they would never cover whatever. But the truth is that I see him. He's there. The pretty much he drags activists, people that are potentially could be turned into a decent activist that actually focuses on a real issue, but he turns them into little whiny feminists. What else? I mean, he puts them all. He just mainly just gets them all distracted by arbitrary issues, like I talk about. Is that instead of worried about Gaddafi being killed by the United government, leaving a country in ruins, leaving a continent's future, making it more negative for the people of Libya and Africa in the future. No, we're going to focus on the Bruce Jenner shit for about 2 months or whatever. Young Turks is pretty bad as well. And what do they talk about Israel in a serious way? When they talk about Israel's unauthorized attacks into Syria, or I talk about their assassinations of Iranian nuclear scientists, and then they'll say that the Iranians are outside their limits when they're not even creating nuclear weapons. If they wanted nuclear weapons, they could have had it 20 years ago. Iran are not a bunch of cavemen, folks. They are a highly civilized country. But I have to say is that right there, those two people on each side, those are just as bad almost as the mainstream media themselves. Alex Jones is as bad as the mainstream media themselves at this point. I mean, he says stuff that doesn't sound much different than a fucking Fox News host at times. And one of the main things he also does is scare people Muslims. That's exactly what the United States government wants to do. Because when they're dragging them off the FEMA camps in the future, that you won't be mad because you don't like Muslims anyways. And then it's like how it was in Germany. First they came for the Muslims, or the Jews, and then they came for blah, blah, well, they came for Jews actually almost last. But they'll be first the Muslims, so then they'll be coming for these other activists. I would guess probably these kind of militia people were probably rounded up around the second. And Alex Jones, he was covering the militia thing in a favorable fashion. I'll give him that. But that's not good, really, because he takes that whole thing. When he says something's good, at this point, Alex Jones has made him. It's almost like bad publicity for the movement. But apparently, Trump doesn't think it's bad publicity because he took the Alex Jones interview. I mean, that's just disgraceful right there. He was interviewing Donald Trump, and they got along so well. I know Alex Jones he's driving the people that have stayed along the train of the Alex Jones. They're going down a dangerous path because they're becoming full Republicans in not very long. And then the people in the Cinco Gorse, and he's already taken the full Democrat town. And Alex Jones is heading to the full Republican town. But those two, stay away from them. You could watch them just to take notes, and but always don't take most of what they say for word. Go to other websites. Like those two, that's the taint, for lack of a less cruder word. Of the alternative media. Now let's talk about another guy, Pete Santilli. Oh, Pete Santilli. I mean, Vince, you've probably heard a little bit about that. I mean, this guy's been completely foiled recently.
Yeah, I got to meet Mr. Santilli myself, and I turned him into a worker for me, actually. When they were setting up the trailer as a stage there in Bunkerville, Ammon Bundy had asked me if I could get some speakers and a sound system going up there. So I went to Pete, and I said, "Hey, Pete," I said, "I need a big favor. Ammon's asked if we can get some sound equipment up here on the stage." So not only was I on the stage during that with the sheriff, the coward Sheriff Gillespie and Cliven Bundy, but yeah, my picture went around the world there with me up on stage with the speakers I got set up.
Well, yeah, but you saw about what happened with Pete Santilli. He's been completely foiled as a shill with he had literally emails. I mean, between him and the FBI, and so it's been a wonder that he'd be right there with an FBI operation at the two Bundy standoffs. So Pete Santilli, in my opinion, it's no surprise that he's a shill. But it seems like the evidence from WikiLeaks or whatever seems to be very convincing. Also, Pete Santilli, I mean, let's look at his website, Before It's News. Before It's News is just a very bizarre website where stuff that makes conspiracy realists look like complete nut jobs exists. These articles talk about flying eels out of caves or out west, or they talk about stuff like I think they brought up Moss Man. I don't know. That whole website is practically how Art Bell used to do was Coast to Coast AM, but put it on the internet and then passed it off as completely legit, and then throw in some stuff about 9/11 and talk about the Bundys or whatever. And then put it on there and attract people to his website, and then but people that might have interest in joining the truth movement, I could just imagine they go to that website and I'm like, these people are nuts. It's and the difference between like him and Art Bell is that Art Bell, I don't think that Art Bell really passed this stuff off like it was 100% legit. I mean, it was more you consider it more of an entertainment show, I believe, and it was kind of treated more like that. I mean, he was way before a lot of these other people as well, and he was before the time of internet. And that was the bad thing about him, is that he was at one point the only source for any of this truth information, and then people ate up a lot of it. So, well, they actually just disregarded it as completely insanity. So he served his purpose as well, like Pete Santilli has done now. And I got a new name for InfoWars and Before It's News. I don't know. It just fit it perfectly. I mean, it's not like I'm saying anything. Now, InfoPores and Before It's News. I don't know where I put it. It just fits right, okay? I don't have anything against women or anything. People are going to say that, oh, look, exposed. Christian Jenny from Voice of Rebellion Radio is a misogynist and hates women. He has to describe these two websites with the word whore in it. No, actually. And also, another thing I want to clear up before is that I was talking about feminists earlier. 100% in favor of gender equality. The feminists don't believe in gender equality. They believe in women's superiority. And just look at any march practice that they've done, and you can tell that that's clearly the case. The stuff that they believe, you can see, like, for example, the wage thing. They get paid 78%. They get paid 77% of what men do get paid. That's true, but they work, but they work 77%. Or 70. They work literally like the proportional amount. Now my mind's on it, but it's 78%. Yeah, they get paid 77% of what men get paid, and they work 78% of what men do. So the differential is minute. I think that they don't. What they need to focus on is how women are treated in U.S. allied countries such as Saudi Arabia, or during the time of Mohammed Morsi was during Egypt. And look at the countries where the United States are allied in the Middle East and how well women are treated there compared to the ones they're not allied with, where women are treated much more fairly and much more equal. I want to also talk about these other websites. We'll just keep going a little bit further into the web of what other websites out there. It seems like the first hour has just been almost completely negative because I just have to put it out there. I mean, you know how long I probably wanted to start ranting about Alex Jones, for one, that has been considered for a long time the king of conspiracy theories. He's and I think conspiracy realists, that's another thing. The conspiracy theorists, well, they can be in their own department. They can be their own media. Because conspiracy theorists are not really the same as us, conspiracy realists. We actually are concerned about the facts. We are not concerned about entertainment value. We are concerned about also what can lead to the revolution. And we're not worried about, and Alex Jones, this whole terrible division that he's created inside the truth movement over the years. And a lot more people are on his bandwagon just a few years ago. It's great to see that starting to end. And also another great thing, let's talk about the big elephant, or the mainstream media. I mean, people still rely on that mainstream media. So many people still rely on that to this day. And I see the older generations, like people, not even older, but the people like middle-aged generation, whatever, people 35 to 55 or whatever, they're not as trusting of the media. In fact, they're probably the least trusting of the mainstream media ever, of any generation. The ones that have been one of the most trusting, however, and I see them, people, if they do share something about the news, they're sharing it from Fox, they're sharing it from CNN, they're sharing it from all these corporate-owned news networks. But that's the young generation. You have to say to the young generation as being one of you, get your shit together. I've been telling you. Other people have been telling you. Your parents have probably been telling you. I mean, I know that it seems like I've met a lot of people that are middle-aged, especially people like around 50, that are very untrusted in the government and very untrusted in the media. It seems like people born in the 60s, they grew up at a good time. They saw activism be successful. They saw the Vietnam War end partially and because of activism, I guess. Maybe that's why they have a little bit more faith in activism than these young people. And when the young people have a protest, it's not a protest about anything useful, it seems like. It seems like they're having a protest about, I don't know, that restaurant did not have a trans restroom. They're discriminating against trans people. Let's all have a protest. Yeah, I know that seems to be, again, little issues that are very minute in comparison to what is going on in the Middle East, what's going on here on the streets, what's going on with people's families falling apart due to poverty. Anyways, before I continue, rant on and on about, I want people know that. Well, is that of course the mainstream media? However, they're losing information war. I mean, Hillary Clinton even said we're losing information war because people are not tuning into the mainstream media anymore. People are watching the mainstream media less than ever. Really, like MSNBC, they'll have shows where they really have like just a few thousand viewers at a time, maybe less, which that's great. And finally, they're getting the treatment they deserve for the garbage that they put on the air for all that time. For years, they put on Al Sharpton, I remember there's the term that somebody used is called a buster. I don't know. It's some kind of term in the hood. I don't know. The guy that kept saying that was on to the Black Panther kind of stuff. Lived not that far away from me. It was actually one of my local comrades. That's what he used to say about Al Sharpton. We joked on him, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. They all fit into that category. They're just there for the money, and they don't care anything about civil rights. Melissa Harris Perry, O'Donnell nowadays. They're all these lame figureheads on the media that say nothing for 1 hour during the show. And wow, they only have 1 hour that they have to bullshit over. I mean, 2 hours of truthful content. I think people will take the alternative media over them. The alternative media is winning though, and RT and other. I give them credit. You know why? People say, well, you seem not to like anybody that's really much bigger than you, isn't it? That's the case. No, that's not the case. Because I'll support RT all day long. I'll support most times. I mean, I've had some disagreements with Jesse Ventura throughout the times, but I'll support his little network he has there. I mean, Jesse Ventura's embracement of Bernie Sanders has been a little bit unnerving, considering some stuff that Bernie Sanders has had to say. But people also, I hope that by alternative media, they're also not turning into BBC, which is not by any means the word alternative media. They are the British bullshit corporation. That's what I would say. They put the same stuff that the American mainstream media puts. They're owned by the same kind of people, but they use a little bit more sophisticated words and talk with a British accent and have Doctor Who, which, man, I don't know what's the big deal about Doctor Who, whatever. I haven't watched more than probably a minute of it that I've caught on TV, so I haven't gave it a chance, but shit, I think it's what some teen girls fan go over for about a couple years or whatever, and I forget that show even exists. But I swear, if it wasn't for Doctor Who, that BBC would not have an audience sizable enough to keep it on TV over here in America. I mean, BBC is literally the mainstream media is people talking in British accents saying, "Oh, hello, mates. Today we're going to talk about why the Queen is totally reasonable to have." I mean, the Queen bootlicking, well, I guess cute-licking, in her case, network. They support the British monarchy, no doubt. They talk down to all the Scottish independents and all the true Irish independent supporters that support the liberation of North Ireland and the true independence of Ireland. That hasn't really been achieved. They never have broke away, it seems like, fully from the shadow of the UK. So the true Irish independent supporters they talk down to. And then anybody that goes against the Western line, the Middle East, they talk down to. And they talk down to anybody that supports Putin. They make Putin seem like a monster. I mean, you should have seen this joke of a documentary they had on about a week ago or so. They literally put on creepy music every time that they showed a picture of Putin, and then the way they said Putin, which I don't think I'm pronouncing it right, but Putin. That's that. It sounded like how they would say it, but they say it all creepy like every time. Putin. Yeah, there it is. That's exactly how they would sound when they're saying it. And then the creepy music would play. There's somebody playing the low keys on the piano. Dong, dong, dong. Putin is very corrupt and has decided that at this point he would plunder his country by taking all the resources of his... now I'm getting into Russian accent. I can't fucking do the BBC. It's already a British accent. I didn't make me do a British... a British trying to do a creepy voice accent. That's double hard. That's not my job. I get paid to do this, but tonight's been too fun. That's the thing, is that I'm not even asking to get paid tonight. I'm not asking to get paid ever, but tonight I was special with him because this has been too fun, just to really putting everybody on roast, all these fake alternative media. BBC, which also has, if you search the internet too long, we all know that I found out in high school that has a very different meaning. Don't look it up. But that's every time I'm gonna hear BBC News, that's actually what's gonna register in the back of my mind. It's like, ew, BBC News. It's like they're not just gross by the fact of the bullshit they put on air, and the stuff that they sound exactly like all the other New World Order news networks. But even their acronym means something gross now. It has nothing to do with the news network. And if you found out about it before you were the age of 15, congratulations, your mind got fucked up at an early age. Anyways, we are about an hour into the show. If anyone wants to call in, chime in before I go on a big rant again or something like that, call in 718-717-8296. 718-717-8296.
I kind of wanted to check out this chat room or something. I wanted to see what people had to say during that, because there was like about 10 minutes there, and I was just going off on. There's been some shows that have been pretty low energy before, but I went on full blast there. It had been a boring day up to that point, and then I just started putting everybody on blast, and I think that's probably some of the listeners enjoyed that. Then I was talking about one alternative media that people are apparently sad that they're going away is Al Jazeera. I have this to say about Al Jazeera. It's like, well, Al Jazeera, the one that makes little sad stories about what happened under the Assad government, making Assad, oh, look, Assad the baby killer. Oh, look, Assad, he's done this and this in Syria. He's dropped barrel bombs. And now I'm going to ask everybody, what the fuck are barrel bombs? Could you just say bombs? It is a war. What do you expect them to fight terrorists with? Slingshots? They're not. The United States government didn't give those terrorists slingshots, so why should Assad fight those terrorists with with inadequate weaponry? They have American state-of-the-art equipment, M16s, and they have brand new trucks, all paid for by the United States government. And the fact is that unfortunately the rebels, who are also work with the terrorists, I mean, they're all one group over there in Syria. Unfortunately, they use humans as they use civilians as human shields. That's unfortunately the case there, and that's where a lot of the civilian casualties happen. It's the rebels' fault. It's the terrorists' fault in Syria. But Al Jazeera will continue to say that everything in Syria that's wrong is Assad's fault. And let's look at where the fuck Al Jazeera is from. Is it from A, United States, possibly? The B, from Russia? Certainly not. C, I don't know. Let's say they're actually from Syria and they know what's actually going on there, I guess, somewhat. It still could be biased anyway if they were from Syria and knew what was going on. Or D, Qatar, a Gulf state that has a lot of interest in destroying Syria, and they have funded ISIS. Oh, wait, it is D. They're in Qatar, and they're located right there in Doha, Qatar. Or as George Bush would pronounce, oh, yeah, we're going to stop the Al Jazeera in Qatar. Wait, Al Jazeera's our friend? Wait, Qatar's our friend? Where the fuck is Qatar? It's pronounced Qatar. I'm going to say Qatar. It sounds better. Wait, what kind of Qatar are we talking about? Are we talking about Jose? He's the cutter for the White House yard. Wait, we don't even have a Jose working. I just assumed the guy was Mexican. Oh, shit, all this was on the mic. All right, I gave you a nice George Bush impression before the show ended. Qatar, yes, is where Al Jazeera is from. And people now they're ending their operation in the United States because people are actually awake and they're like, we know what Al Jazeera is about. We're not going to watch Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is done in the United States. They're probably going to be done in most of the world besides Qatar, where they're from, very soon. And they have just been so biased also about Egypt. They supported the CIA puppet. And CIA supported the revolution, in quotations, for Morsi to get in power. And the thing was that happened in Egypt, I'll clarify, is that it was just a transfer of power from one United States puppet to another United States puppet. When their other one fell out of favor and was thrown out by the people, they just controlled the revolution and brought in another United States puppet, Mohamed Morsi, who wanted to turn Egypt into a Gulf monarchy, just like Qatar, which Al Jazeera, it just happened that we're supporting that. Totally coincidental. And, now the media, the alternative media switched over. That was 2010 when Al Jazeera was still popular and Alex Jones was at the height. But now this is a few years later. And now I guess he's popular now. Press TV is around from Iran, and they actually provide a true story of what's going on in Syria, and they don't demonize Iran and make Iran seem like they're this horrible state where there's no rights, and it's still the time kings in Iran. No, they make it clear that it is a democratically elected government, and that that they have complete freedom of voice for the different movements inside of Iran. But they are from Iran, so yeah, of course they will be probably a little bit biased there. However, they talk, Syria, they give a very adequate description of what's going on there. And Yemen, they've been one of the few people to actually cover that Yemen crisis. Well, actually, they covered Syria much better than most people. And Yemen, though, they've covered it so well, while other people just left a blackout on it. They talk about the complete extent of the Saudi crimes in Yemen, and the United States funded Saudi crimes in Yemen, the bombing of innocent civilians, the bombing of women, the bombing of innocent men. This is very similar to what Israel does to Palestine, what they're doing in Yemen. It is the poorest country in the Middle East, which that's saying quite a bit. I mean, it's one of the most poorest countries on the planet they're bombing. They don't have much of a military, the Houthis. They have just taken power. In fact, they started bombing them practically once they had just taken power. So what would that be the equivalent of? It's like when you're still moving into your new house or whatever that you were able to acquire from the last landowners of the house, those landowners collaborate with a much more meaner real estate department. We're going to say gangsters. They collaborate with the local street gang. They all come with guns to your house while you haven't even, you have one or two little handguns maybe in the house or whatever to protect yourself with. You haven't fortified the house, whatever. You have no security on your house. That's what they did. They just steamrolled right into Yemen across the side. They took down the fence and then they went in with tanks. And their airspace isn't protected whatsoever. So just a complete massacre for months. Okay, then the street gang comes to your house. You're forced to protect you, your wife, your kids, while the street gang breaks in your windows really easily. You have no alarm on your house. You don't even have a phone connected, so you can't even call anybody. And your neighbors are too scared to do anything. They see it happening. They see the gang coming in. They are adequately armed, but they are kind of in the pocketbooks of the, we'll just say these are Gulf states, these houses around. They're in the pocketbooks of the armed gang. They get money. They do the little hustle with the armed gang or whatever. They buy off their cheap CDs or whatever. And then the gang comes in your house and starts killing you and your family. That's it. That's Yemen right now. So think about that. You being that innocent little family, that's Yemen. And, Press TV has been able to describe that pretty adequately. They've covered it the whole time. And while other people, they just shut up about it after about a month. Not even. American media, they stopped talking about it after about 2 days. And of course, corporate media, if you were relying on that for your news, at this point, you're lost. It is very close to the point of martial law in the United States, and there's not much more time to wake up. Even woken up at this point, I don't know. We've got a lot of warnings. I don't know how you could avoid. You gotta be dodging the truth at this point, like the Matrix agents. You're going left and right, and you're like a blur, trying to, it's like coming at you with bullets. It's everywhere. It's all over the internet. You have to, I don't know. But that's why they do load it up with porn. I believe the government has made it that way from the very start. Back in the 80s, I believe that was their plan. That's why they let internet pornography get to the point where it is. I think it's something like, was it? I think like 83% of the internet's porn. I don't know. I think it's something like that because they're just on these websites so many videos. There's a reason why they do it. It's so you don't look at real stuff. It's like, you're looking there. It's probably happened many times. People are going to read something about 9/11 truth, or they're going to read something about the JFK assassination, but then they realize they could be looking at titties, and they want to look at titties. And they forgot totally about the 9/11 truth article. But I say there's nothing wrong with doing both, but please have priorities straight. That's all I say. And, don't get in the weird stuff. They allow some stuff that should definitely not be allowed on the internet. I could see why other countries block that shit. uh, I think that we are definitely alternative media on the internet. I mean, it's hard to find it. It's hard to find the good stuff. I mean, you just use number one. I'll tell you one thing is that if you see if the site looks really old and outdated, yeah, you're not going to get a very good assessment of whatever you're trying to look up. I mean, the websites that were made, it seems like the 90s and stuff that you encounter sometimes on the internet, they seem to almost just be for scare factor and almost like entertainment websites. It seems like only recently that actually started taking it seriously and put it into like a normal news format, and actually try to put it in a way that easily awakens people. I don't know why they did that for so many years. Even like I remember was going to the Bohemian Grove website or whatever. There was talk about the Bohemian Grove. This creepy music started playing or whatever. I'm like, well, that's unnecessary. It's like you could just put that in a research style, like something that looks more credible. It's like nobody's going to believe shit that comes from that website. I mean, I know web designers were bad back then. It was very hard to design a good website back then. So that might be why. I mean, these websites, I'm talking about stuff that's over 15 years old at this point. Going back to the 90s, I mean, at that time, Alex Jones had practically almost a monopoly over the alternative media almost. It's just very few other people talking about it. The internet just wasn't very evolved yet. I mean, it was very hard to find. And at this point now, I mean, you literally just type in words in the Google and it pops up. It's right there. But it used to be, I think you had to go into like research databases, go into government, maybe go into like the CIA website or whatever and try to find what's halfway declassified or whatever. That's probably kind of like how you had to do it back in the 90s or whatever, which I would know because I was very young then. I was not even born most of the time in the 90s. So it's now it's a lot different. So the game has completely changed. I mean, you could be literally anywhere. And you look up on your phone, type in a few words into Google, and you could read an article about the Lavon affair, or whatever, when Israel activated terror cells against the United States assets in Egypt because of, they felt the United States was getting too warm towards Egypt. And the alternative media is very hard to sift through. There's a lot of this propaganda, a lot of agendas in there. There's people trying to turn people into. Sometimes it's spread. Bigotry is often spread into the alternative media different ways by putting stuff like into different words. Like if you see something like a website that just says full of, Jews did this, Jews did that, Jews did, then of course you probably shouldn't take too much. Take it with a grain of salt. Is all I'm saying. It's when they start to blame one group of people for doing everything that's ever been bad on the planet. A group, a religion or race I'm talking about. Not like Zionist or fascist. That's different. That's a political ideology or whatever that has been very destructive. I'm talking about when they start blaming us, like, or saying, especially some of them, it'll be like blacks are responsible for whatever. You see these websites or whatever, and then people don't know. They say, blacks are really responsible for 90% of the crime and 50% of the rapes or whatever, but they don't realize is that, the websites belong to racists or fascists from different parts of the world, sometimes like the European Nights website. Without an untrained eye, it just looks like, maybe some kind of group promoting justice in Europe, I don't know. But it's actually very close to the KKK. It's the European version of the KKK. And these other websites that spawned off the KKK also exist on the internet in America. And that's where the line starts to blur. Because David Duke tries to appeal sometimes to conspiracy realists. And if you know who David Duke is, he's a KKK. He was a KKK leader. He actually using the government for a short time. And I'll tell you one thing, is that KKK and the government are actually very closely connected. 5 of the current United States government people in the House are KKK members. It's the organization has also been always closely connected to, it seems like, to the Freemasons. By no surprise, the secret society that are the elite. The KKK, with David Duke, has been able to get into the conspiracy realist movement a little bit by saying, by talking about the Federal Reserve and talking about Israel. That's how they do drag some people in, unfortunately, is that we get associated with these people is one thing about those people. Say, well, this guy was talking the same thing you were talking about, so you must be a Nazi or whatever. And then they also do drag in people that were on the right path, but they drag them into their movements, and they just turn them into hateful, divisive person that do not stand for anything of unity. Let's look at, what they were able, how were they able to break up the Black Panther movement? They were able to break that via division. The unity that they had was when they were the strongest in the 60s and 70s. By the 80s, it all broke up. And then when it was divided, they fell. And they turned into street gangs, a lot of them. They were able to pervert the little remnants of the Black Panther movement into street gangs known as the Bloods, Crips, and other movements. So they have no connection to the original Black Panthers. Then there's the new Black Panthers, which are a racist group that are actually promoted sometimes by the mainstream media because they promote division. And they have no connection to the original Black Panthers. The Huey Newton Foundation says so. Huey Newton was the founder. The Huey P. Newton was the founder of the Black Panthers. They have no connection, and this family says the new Black Panthers have no connection to the old Black Panthers. If anybody wants to call in, we're about an hour 15 minutes into the show. 718-717-8296. 718-717-8296. I feel like I'm not covering some of these really bad pages that should be covered. Facebook. The revolution's almost been taken off of Facebook. I mean, not too many people seem to be on there too much anymore. But that was another oxymoron page. I mean, it was a page that said the revolution, but literally stood for everything counter-revolutionary. It's going to continue to support the corporate and government dominance over the United States, but as long as the government wasn't Democrats. It was pretty much just another Republican mouthpiece talking. The people on there would talk shit about Mexicans, talk shit about Muslims, and it's funny how people, with Muslims say, well, they're not a race or whatever, so it's not racism when we discriminate on them. But it still makes you a dickhead. It's simple as that. That you would discriminate on a whole group of people like that 99.999% of them are peaceful. And I'll tell you another thing is that is that if Muslims were as violent as people claim them to be, we'd all be dead. They have close to 2 billion followers, and yet we're all still here. Over 7 billion of us, because they're not violent. They're not as violent as people claim them to be, and in fact, the religion doesn't preach that. There is instances if you took stuff out of context, just like the Bible. However, if you looked at the word count of this versus that, different words are said. It's like double the amount of violent words in the Bible, in the Quran. However, it's all out of context when people take these quotes. And mostly, who I discredit for that, and there's other people, they're not even activists. It's the new atheist movement I discredit. I credit for all the division between Christian and Muslims and all the atheists that just do complete religion bashing. They talk about how tolerant they are. They're not tolerant of any religion. And they're not tolerant of Christian, not tolerant of Muslims. And you know who is one people that they never talk about? Zionists. They talk like Jews are so clean as a religion. They have no violent members. But you mention Zionists to them, and they probably say, "Oh, shut up, Nazi," or whatever. And then they'll talk about how Hitler was a Christian and follows Christian ideology, is what they say. And what the truth was that there was a Catholic movement, most of the Nazis, and that he actually persecuted I believe, a lot of the Christians that weren't Catholic. And the Catholics are, I mean, you can call them Christians, but there's a pretty big split off in reality. Going back to the revolution, that page is that it's just it's a cesspool for pissed off people, pissed off right wingers talking good about Zionism. I mean, they'll literally have like pictures. They'll be like, showing like the 15-year-old that got hit with the rocks, or not hit with the rocks. He's supposed to be throwing rocks, and they beat him up. I mean, they beat him bad. And then they say, "Oh, look, the Israelis taught another lesson to a troublemaking Palestinian." If you consider a harsh beating within an inch of your life a lesson adequate for supposedly throwing stones at assholes that are occupying your country, I mean, what do they think? Okay, let's put this in a different perspective. We'll just say that you told them, "Oh, yeah, I thought that the Soviets and Red Dawn were the good guys." And of course, they would get very pissed off at you. It's like, "Oh yeah, that one boy that was shot in the school at the very beginning of the movie. Well, he wasn't listening to the Soviets' orders or whatever and then he got shot because of it." It's almost like that same line of thinking. Or look at those. It's like, oh, they're just doing their jobs, troublemaking Americans. Interfering with the Soviets, Soviet jobs and Red Dawn. And Red Dawn's a movie, but I'm saying there's no real comparison to what the Israelis. It's unparalleled, really. The kind of oppression that they put on the Palestinians, how they live their lives because of the Israeli oppression. And then there's another page, which people have no clue. It seems like who these people are. Britain First. Oh, Britain First. Oh, let's put it this way: that Britain First is a page that has the weirdness to support Churchill, somebody that went against the Nazis. Well, he wasn't really truly anti-Nazi, and there was a few instances where you could talk about how he actually did a lot. He was a very despicable man and contradicted himself many times. But let's talk about. Let's talk about how great Churchill was, but also at the same time embrace fascist ideology. And I'm pretty sure they call themselves fascists. Britain First sometimes pops up in the activist community, and they talk very bad about Muslims, and they just show. They just pretty much this is their breakdown of Muslims, is that they call Muhammad a pedophile. I think they'll even put up pictures of Muhammad and stuff like that, or what they say, "Oh, one of these is Muhammad. Are you offended yet?" And stuff like that. Just trying to start a fire. They'll say that. I believe they'll even say at times, "Oh yeah, Muslims worship the moon. They're pagan heretics or stuff like that." I mean, it's pretty much a theocratic page belonging to the. I don't know what the Church of England practically. They want to go back to the rule of the Church of England, and they talk about how great British people are, and they talk about how British are pretty much, you born British, you win the lottery, which that sounds a lot like Cecil Rhodes because he said that quote. I mean, if you talked about Cecil Rhodes to these people, they would probably go a bunch of shit, and then you'd probably see how really racist they are, because it would be like, "Oh yeah, he did kill 10 million people, but they were Africans." And that's exactly the line of thinking that has went in the Western world in the United States. That, people won't talk about Cecil Rhodes on the same level as how horrible Hitler was, because Cecil Rhodes killed Africans. But the British history, just 100 years ago, they were killing tens of millions of Africans, changing just for guarding their land. They changed their customs. They made them get rid of their country's names. They made them get rid of their languages and learn English. They invaded Africa and plundered it and made it poor, and now they still do it via neocolonialism. And so does France, and a lot of the Western European countries still do it to this day. But back then, they pretty much just set the climate for how it was into the last 50 years, thanks to the British colonialism then, and the neocolonialism probably set for the next 50 years, if there hasn't been a big war or something major hasn't happened by that point. But to set the climate for the next 50 years. if there has been a big war. But in the next 50 years after that, with this era of neocolonialism, I mean, it's kind of ending. I mean, you could say with I don't know. It's kind of going back and forth. I mean, I would say that there's some leaders down there in Africa that pretend that they are truly for the African people, that pretend like they're truly for African independence, but they still have ties to England, or still have ties to England, still have ties to West German, corporations or something, stuff like that. What I have to say is that Britain First, people share their stuff, and it's mostly just a page to hate Muslims. They talk about how Muslims are taking over Britain or whatever. And it's like, I gotta say, is that if you let a very small minority of people take over your country, like they're doing right there in Britain, well, it actually sort of sounds like what you guys did to the Africans. There were a small minority that invaded, and you killed a lot of them, and then you made them learn your customs, but that's not what happened in Britain. There's nobody getting killed by English or by Muslim migrants. They aren't forcing them to learn their culture. It's not a planned takeover. It's not a colonization by the Muslim world of Britain. Britain is, the true thing about Britain is that they have some Muslims because they bomb the shit out of Middle Eastern countries and then they run there because they don't have much of a choice. And Britain First is an alternative media cesspool that needs to be forgotten about. And I think that's about enough negativity for alternative media sites. I mean, those are the main ones I've got. I've covered are the main terrible ones. Let's talk about some of the good ones. I talked about RT and TV, and those are good a lot of the times. I've grown to like Press TV maybe a little bit. I mean, I think RT will always be about my favorite page. It's not really the content. It's almost like you have to double read stuff to really get the full meaning of what they say by it, because RT, they rarely will actually say what they're actually talking about. They won't say New World Order, but they'll say unipolar world. They won't say what's that other thing that I've caught them kind of doing is that they won't say so like false flag, but they'll say questionable circumstance may around the event. I mean, they kind of are. I don't know. They kind of not. They don't dive 100% into the water. They kind of put their feet in and kind of go in a little bit. It's to put. They know that for some people, the shock, they would just get right out of the pool. I guess maybe that's a tactic they're doing. Is that for some people jumping into that pool of truth, they would get in that water. It'd be the shock would be too much, and they get right out. But if they put their feet in, they slowly walk down, and they kind of goes up to their chest, and then maybe they'll put their head in and just actually go in the water. For me, I know if somebody listened to my show for the first time, I don't know, you almost they wouldn't even know that they'd be like, they'd go into the pool and they'd be like, where am I? Oh my God, what's going on? They wouldn't even know they're in the pool practically, because they wouldn't really know what I'm talking about a lot of the times. It's kind of like for people that were already they're on the 3-foot section. I just bring them over to the 5-foot section. I like to think that at least. And you can love my little analogies that I have. I always seem to have a decent analogy that I pull out during the show. But yeah, that's what I believe like RT's doing. And Press TV, well, yeah, they kind of pull you into the pool very quickly. I mean, they talk about Israel supporting ISIS. They talk about all these Western powers supporting ISIS, which RT has talked about a little bit. I mean, Putin said it directly onto a G20 summit, so he pretty much had to cover that, I guess. I don't know. Press TV, though, will be very blunt about stuff, and they'll talk about how the United States is airstriking in favor of ISIS in Syria. They'll talk about Press TV has said 9/11's inside job. I'm pretty sure. I mean, the president said that to the UN. The Press TV has talked about. They'll say straight up about that they think that the United States still has racism left over, and it's not just a little minute issue or whatever. I mean, they talk about they'll talk about the hypocrisy they'll talk about the supposed Iranian oppression of whatever minorities that doesn't happen when the United States has real oppression of minorities that is happening. And then Press TV is an all right source, but I said Telesur is one of the best when it comes to Latin American affairs. They really bring the thing that the truth about something that is not even really talked about in North America, about what went down the whole political revolution in South America that's happened with Chavez and happened with Kirchner, and the many changes and many development of the peoples there. But also, they talk about the bad side, the past of South America, the coups, the wars. The United States supporting more coups, the United States supporting more murders inside of South America to this day. And now, I mean, they were able to recapture Argentina, and they still have to this day Colombia, and they never lost Colombia. And they were able to regain Paraguay not that long ago. So it's, to talk about it seems to be never-ending battle between the imperialists and the people of South America. This guide that I'm bringing up. I mean, it's definitely no real solid way to do your research by. I mean, I think everybody it's literally do your own research. That's the message you have to go by. Is don't just stick to the websites I put, but I can give you some tips how to. I already did. I already gave you some tips. What to avoid when you're, on the internet, looking at the different sources of truth, or stuff like claims to be truth. The truth movement. It's very broad, also in political spectrum. You get stuff from very different political spectrums. I mean, probably a lot of people are kind of surprised where this show is, on the political spectrum compared to some of the other stuff. I mean. Compared to I would say that a good truther that I've noticed. I think I don't know. I question a little bit this guy, but I think that he seems to be pretty legit. Luke Rudkowski or whatever. I think that Luke Rudkowski he actually focuses on the important issues, unlike other people. And there's another one. Oh, I forgot to talk about this guy, Mark Dice. I don't want to talk too much about him, and I'm not going to talk too negatively about him because I've already had enough negativity in the show. But Mark Dice, he seems to be in like an upstate, or not upstate. He's not even. I was thinking he seems to be like one of those California. He's a California rich kid. I mean, he can move to California, but he's a rich kid. I can tell. That he got a lot of money in his 20s running some kind of dating website, and now he's using his pseudonym Mark Dice. He goes around pretty much just tries to spread his brand of right-wing truth or politics that doesn't really cover a real criticism of Israel, doesn't really cover a real criticism of U.S. foreign policy even. And then. He'll just go around. He just seems to try to make Americans look dumb and try. It's like, okay, you made your point. Yes, the Americans are asleep, but what are you going to do about it to wake them up? And then he will. He talks about the corruption in Hollywood, which there is corruption in Hollywood, but that's the only thing he really sticks to. Anyways, if anybody wants to call in, I'll give a number out again. 718-717-8296. 718-717-8296. Telesur, that's another great one. RT, Press TV, Telesur. Let's talk about not a good source. I'm trying to think of one that there's got to be one. Well, one of the Eastern European stuff I would say over Russia today, which has became like it became like the voice of the oppressed people of East Ukraine. It really covers really live updates of what's going on in East Ukraine, which I haven't talked about so much lately, but it's still going on over there, and it talks about the real crimes that are happening currently. By the way, the Ukrainian government talks about the real struggle against fascism in Ukraine. And there's these people that literally carry around pictures of Hitler going around and from West Ukraine, the Azov battalion, and they head to East Ukraine and they kill people based on their nationality just because they're Russian, which there's a lot of Russians in East Ukraine. And they want to ban the language of Russian in Ukraine, West Ukraine, which they want all that territory. Now, part of it split off and became independent, and now that's what's East Ukraine. But these West Ukrainians, they think that people back in Kiev also, with their corrupt chocolate king, they call him Poroshenko because he's a billionaire off of chocolate. That's what he sold. Is now it's playing. I mean, it's pretty much just bombing civilian areas in East Ukraine, Donbass, Lugansk, Donetsk, and Novorossiya today pretty good at covering all that. And there's very few they'll cover as in depth as them. I mean, it's like pretty much the news agency for East Ukraine at this point. So you could, and they also cover stuff from like, I think they cover sometimes like stuff like Transnistria, that little struggle for that little piece of land in Moldova, which I know this really sounds like bizarre countries, but they're real countries. You can look it up. We talk about a little bit about the Belarus. If you want a better, broader spectrum of what's going on in Eastern Europe, Fort Rus is a good website. And Fort Rus, we kind of work together. Our network, Voice of Rebellion Radio, Fort Rus, we kind of work together. You can actually add the one guy from Fort Rus on Facebook, Joaquin Flores. Joaquin Flores works for Fort Rus, and they have quite a bit of a range. They're one of the better small alternative media websites on the internet, so it's good to give them a shout out on the show while we're talking about that. I think that's important that people get the names of some of these websites. They might never encounter it unless they go look for it. And on Facebook, there's a pretty good one that's Global Public Alert. They're not as active as they used to be, and their graphics look a little bit distracting. That's the only thing I have to say about it. But we also work pretty closely together, actually. I mean, Global Public Alert and we did work very closely together. Now we still kind of work together. Voice of Rebellion and Global Public Alert, and they're based out of like Fort Rus. I think Joaquin is from Serbia, and they're also based out of a ex-Yugoslavian country. They're based out of Macedonia, and they kind of lurk around, I guess, on Vladimir Putin groups. It seems like, and they also they have their own page. It has like 25,000 likes, and they have some stuff.
Hey, brother. I thought I'd just break in here with you and see if you wanted me to come in with you, and maybe you could ask me some questions or something about the situation out there in Oregon.
Well, yeah, I was just finishing up about these sites I was recommending to people.
Yes, please continue. I'm sorry.
And then but I definitely will talk about that in a few minutes or so. I mean, this show, I want to make it clear that this show is in honor of this is the show. It's in honor of Lavoy Finicum. Something to keep in mind because it just happened between this last show that we did last week and this show this week. I think that one great way to honor Lavoy Finicum is by getting people off of the web, off of the parts of the web that consider Lavoy Finicum a domestic terrorist and the parts of the web that are used as tools by the same government that killed Lavoy Finicum. Oh yeah, I was gonna finish with the Global Public Alert is that page. Give them a like or whatever. That they're all Facebook exclusive. Well, not Facebook exclusive, but they don't actually have a real website. They have that, which has a pretty good range. I disagree with stuff to talk about, but for the most part, I agree with them. And they're on. It's also like some website called TCU, and they're on Facebook as well. And then if you go to another website, RNA/RHK News, they're a much smaller website. They're only on Facebook from what I know so far, but they're small, but they're all over the place. It seems like they have people all around the world. They kind of have a central basis, I think, on Latin America. One of them that I know, one of the reporters that I am closely in contact with, is from Venezuela. They cover all kinds of stuff. I mean, they don't really have a specific basis. It's kind of like Global Public Alert. Global Public Alert is great because they're not just news. They're more of like an information bank. Like they put up different information throughout the years, and you just see like they have it all logged. You can look for it, and it has stuff all around the world, and they'll have multiple links on there and different information. I mean, I hate to say memes because it doesn't sound informative, but they are informative. These memes that they put up. And these memes they put up are informative because right with it comes with the links. They put like right there, and then you have like 10 different links you can go to and check out what they're saying, how it's backed. They'll have the description, they'll have and then they'll have the links to back up the information that they're talking about. Then RHK News. It's kind of like they are actually like news. I mean, it's like talk about current stories that are going on right now, and it's mostly a Spanish website. If you speak Spanish, that's a good website for you. And you can personally add Freddie Nunez. That's one of the reporters. You can add him. And then there was this. Man, I hate this. I mean, it's not professional, is it? But I'm not getting paid, so who gives a shit? But Nelly Gallo. She works. I had her on Facebook for a little bit, but man, she's a pretty sexy reporter. I gotta say. I mean, if you don't really care about what they actually have to say, but you just want to, hopefully you care about what they have to say. But here's a bonus for you is that you get to look at a hot reporter in the videos that she makes, or just add her on Facebook. I had her on Facebook, but I don't know what happened. But definitely check that all out. We just have enough time really just to talk about for a few minutes here because this has been pretty important. But Vince, let's talk a little bit about this Oregon militia thing before the show ends. Is that so there's still 4 people that are. Is there any sign that they're gonna leave anytime soon, or are they just hunkered down? Because I know Amanda Bundy told everybody to stand down at this point.
Yeah, there's 4 people left in there, and I mistakenly said today that Stephen Brooks was there, and I'm thinking he's in Vegas now, so I'm not sure when he left. The one guy, I can't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure that's the same guy I remember from Bunkerville, the big guy. David Fry, I didn't know. Let's see, I'm looking for their names here. Well, there's 4 left there. They're saying that they need pardons before they'll come out. One guy has previous warrants, and then one guy was saying on one of the live feeds from inside there, David Fry was broadcasting that he called out for people to come and drive up to the roadblocks and kill the cops. Later, he said that he thought that was the last day of his life, and he was hoping, for somebody to come save him. But yeah, they're probably gonna really throw the book at these guys, I guess. Pete Santilli's still in jail. They're talking about releasing him. The woman that was arrested, I guess they said they'll let her go after the remaining 4 surrender. Let's see. They're going to keep so far. They're not giving bail to several people that were arrested, including Ammon, Ryan, Buddha, Shaughnessy. I think that there's a few. They're going to keep them without bail. And you know the really sad part. Let's see here: Sean Anderson, Sandy Anderson, David Fry, 3 of the 4. So I'm not sure the 4th name there. I think I read it earlier, but they're not releasing them on. They're not even setting them a bail. I mean, which is ridiculous to think that, especially Emin or Ryan would be a flight risk. I mean, where are you going to run to, right? Was he going to go back to his property back in Idaho and head for the hills? You know, he's already the whole time. Emin was very forthright. He came out, met with the sheriff. He met with authorities at several times. So the fact that they set up a choke point, it was not a traffic stop. They caught him out there where there was no cell service too. They choked him off. Reports I'm getting is they fired upon him at the first initial stop. I guess that's when Lavoie probably took off. He made it, I think, maybe a mile down the road, and they had another roadblock there. So he goes for the roadside. When he impacts into the snow there, of course, it slowed his vehicle down to the point to a stop. Right as he was coming right past there, one of these agents jumped out in front of him. I can only assume so that he could initiate the others to open fire with deadly force there. Lavoie got out of the vehicle, had his arms in the air, and it appears to me and to a great many others that when he went and reached to his left side, it looks like he was probably shot at that point. I think they used that to they shot him, and then that one just walked up and shot him in the head. I covered for Shawley this morning on Cold Reality, and had several people on. Michael from Primer Time, Tuesday nights here on UCY.TV, joined us. Miner Dave Everest, Corey and Renee, and JJ came in. So we had a pretty good panel, pretty good discussion. I think it's quite obvious to many that the man was murdered. There's a lot from the left. Now, Friday on Real Liberty Media, No Time for Rational Thinking, my broadcast there, I had Thomas Robert Lochinvar Stewart and PM Beers, both of whom I met and have been in close contact with over these last couple of years. I met them in Bunkerville. Now, Patty's, I'm going to go ahead and put these tags on them here, although not completely applying. Patty being a bleeding heart liberal, and Thomas the extreme right-wingist, okay? But, and it turned out just as I knew it would. They're very, very rational thinking people, and they both agreed so almost across the board on all this. And unfortunately, the left, you know, I'm going to say.
Well, look, before you say anything, I'll say that it's both. It's the mainstream left and the mainstream right are both criticizing Bundy. I see people that belong to looks like the mainstream Republican Party or whatever saying that, oh yeah, law enforcement did a good job or whatever. You know, you can't act this way towards law enforcement and expect to live. That kind of stuff is coming out of their mouths.
Right.
So it's both.
You're right.
I'm saying is that it's most. The thing is, it's not a left-right issue at this point either. It is a state versus a people issue. And between the people that are against it for it, it's between government bootlickers and people that actually wish, and people that have been brainwashed by those people, and people that are actually rational, and people that actually want, but actually know that marches and peaceful activism doesn't always work out, and on this case.
Yeah, I use words sometimes incorrectly, and calling them armed militants and occupiers and stuff. I don't see much difference in what they were doing as a sit-in, and the fact that they have guns is not against the law. It's supposed to be a protected right. So um, I think it was a failed opportunity. A lot of people were, of course, against the so-called occupation, but everybody's looking for something perfect to, that they should look. I think where our commonalities are instead of division. But we've been socially engineered for so long, all of us. We're so dumbed down by the education system, the mainstream media, the fluoride in the water. I've got a well, so I got good water. I mean, they even put fluoride in all types of things and other things. The mercury in vaccines. You got lead in the water and in Flint. I mean, there's a war
There's
against
23
it.
Harvard studies that say that fluoride is bad for you. And people, oh no, it's there for our teeth. Oh God, give me a break.
Yeah, there's fluoride in the I forget what drink that is for babies. They don't even have a teeth. How could that be good for teeth? It's a straight up poison. It's a byproduct, of course, from aluminum industry. And instead of having to pay to dump hazardous waste, they sell it and let the water municipalities dump it in water. What a way to get rid of your trash, huh?
And not only that is that it is so bad. I mean, you have to put it in special containers just so it doesn't melt through the container. I mean, they have to put it in like really 6 feet tanks at the water plant. I mean, fluoride it's so corrosive. Imagine what it does, inside your body, and of course, your brain. It's proven to cause, I think, at least an IQ drop of 7 points within a very short period of time or so. I think, in your formative years, it can cause, if you're drinking through your formative years, you could have a 7-point IQ drop. Fluoride, it definitely had a factor on the United States, but I think ultimately the big factor, it's been social engineering. It's been different key words that have been put into people's heads to mean bad. And when they hear militant and militia, that it just automatically creates a rage inside of people's heads. They think that these people, they automatically see these people are bad men, of bad character, that they are trying to achieve something purely to their own self-gain. It's not something them standing up towards the federal, these, especially the new generation, they really don't see much of a problem with the federal government, and they believe that the federal government is this benevolent entity looking out for their own good. And the sad thing is, I didn't see like one person I went to high school with was supporting these militiamen ever. In fact, they didn't even talk about them. But I know that I know for one thing is that if they knew about them, they probably wouldn't support them because they've been so socially engineered, and this generation, I think, has been the worst affected. Hopefully they'll start listening to me, and hopefully they'll. I mean, I could just say that all I want, but it's probably unlikely to happen. The Mr. Oregon thing, though. They point. What's the funniest thing is the one thing that they kept making fun of them about was literally the snacks thing. That because they asked because they were supposedly ill prepared. But do you believe they were ill prepared for the standoff?
Yeah, I think it was probably it certainly wasn't planned. It was like last minute ditch to we got to do something, and but you know what? Really, I mean, what better place could they have chosen? They went way out of the way from anybody. There was nobody no chance of anybody being harmed, if things did go bad or whatever. So, I personally, maybe not the best plan, but it was something, and I certainly don't think there was any laws broken. Certainly, well, with the legality and all that. But as far as government goes, the corruption is so widespread. Just about everybody in seats of decision is set there against us. That the corruption amongst all of these people involved out there in the official capacity of government, all of them seem to have something attached to them, like the special agent in charge of Oregon occupation, Greg Bretzing. He's been linked to national security breach, fraud, and corruption in Salt Lake City. The judge involved with the sentencing of the Hammonds, I might be giving that wrong information there, but the prosecutor, even the sheriff there, he was appointed, and he was a former BLM employee. So it's definitely corruption in the highest places of office throughout this land, and they're not here. Just like police have no obligation to protect you. I mean, they can't do anything until after something's happened, or unless they actually are the ones perpetrating the crime, which seems to be more and more often. Now, my question is, with Lavoie, if you've already got your booger picker on the bang switch, why not? Why would you shoot somebody when they're making a move? If he truly had a gun, I mean, once they actually saw a gun in his hand coming out, how quick does it take to pull the trigger before he could draw a line of sight on anybody? It was a setup, and it was murder, plain and simple. I think Anonymous is calling for some action against the leaders of the federal people involved in this.
Yeah, I would say that what this whole Oregon thing is going to be, it's definitely not what actually happened, but more of the legacy it's going to leave. And I think that Lavoie will be somewhat of a martyr in the next, when the militia movements, I think they're going to come back. I mean, they've kind of been dormant about 20 years, but I think that after 20 years off, they're going to start to come back after this Oregon thing. And it was definitely something out of rash planning. It was very quick. May next time will be a lot better planned. May there'll be more things they can achieve. But let's ask, why did the federal government want that land? That's a big question. And because collateral.
That's it.
And also the clear land for their big corporate interests that they are working with. That's the corruption that you're talking about as well. I think that the land in these ranchers, they talk about how these people were somewhat well off. Well, they're not nearly as well off as these big corporations they want to bring in to use the land that are full with different, it's great grazing land for big factory farms that they bring out there, or the resources that are in the ground right there in Oregon and all throughout the out west. And that's why they've been taken. And some of the states are over 50% controlled by the federal government.
Yeah, some of them even a lot higher than that, like Nevada. I think Oregon is about 50-odd%, 53% or something like that. Hey, before we run out of time, I just want to remind listeners to stick around. Nathan Frazier, Live Free FM is next here at UCY.tv. I appreciate all the listeners, all the chatters, and everybody contributing. Chris, thanks for your show. You're doing a great job. When's your birthday? It's coming up here in just a few days, isn't it?
It's next Sunday.
Next Sunday. All right. One more week. 17 years old. What a fantastic mind you have. So don't drink the water is my advice to you, brother. And I'm going to go back to mute and let you finish out the show here. And again, thanks a lot, Chris, and everybody listening.
I don't drink the water. I don't drink the water. That's why I'll be drinking vodka on my birthday. What? Kidding. But anyways, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We're about to be hitting the bumper here in just a few seconds. Next week we'll see what's going on, and next week try not to get too distracted by the Super Bowl spectacle and all the other stuff that'll be happening next weekend, and whatever bets you have on the Super Bowl next weekend. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks again for all the people that contribute.
Point of no return and nobody can stop it. Malcolm Little when he knelt before Elijah Muhammad, the comet that killed the dinosaurs, changing the earth. They love to criticize, they always say I changed for the worse. Like prescription pills when you misusing them, nigga. The Templar Knights when they took Jerusalem, nigga, and figured out what was buried under Solomon's temple, Al-Aqsa. The name is not coincidental. I know too much, the government is trying to murder me. No coming back like cutting your wrists open vertically. How could the The serpent be purposely put in charge of the country. Genetic engineered sickness spread amongst me. My people are so hungry that they attack without reason, like a fucking dog ripping off the hand that feeds him. Immortal technique is treason to the Patriot Act. So come and get me, motherfucker, cause I'm not coming back. This is the point from which I can never return, and if I back down